Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back when you use it to buy the new Apple Vision Pro or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.50% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Apple Card and Savings by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
Hey there, Working Overtime listeners. Before we start the show, I want to let you know about a story that's coming up a little later. It's from one of our partners, SAP. AI comes at you fast. If you don't get reliable and relevant advice, your business might miss out. Whether you're looking to automate tasks or embed AI in your business processes, SAP can help. To learn more, head to sap.com/AI and stick around for expert advice on how to embrace AI with confidence.
Welcome back to Working Overtime, the advice-forward Best Editing Oscar to Working's Best Director. I'm your host, Isaac Butler.
And I'm your other host, June Thomas.
June, this is normally the time when I ask you how you are doing, but we just recorded a regular episode of Working 2 hours ago, so have there been any major life changes in the last 2 hours?
No, I went outside for a walk, but I did not have a massive artistic epiphany or any other kind of epiphany, so no.
That's too bad.
Mm-hmm. So what are we talking about today?
Well, over the holidays, we got some messages from our listeners, and I thought we'd sift through the old mailbag and take a couple of them out for a spin. What do you think?
Oh, that sounds amazing. Let's do it.
The first comes from a longtime listener, Mark, who has a really good question based on one of our recent episodes.
Dear Working, I'm at the stage in my career that you've described a few times. I have so much work to do related to many creative projects. My wife and I also manage a busy family life, and together this long list of tasks is not doable by two people. As you suggest, I've been trying to hire help for a while, and it's turned out to be much harder than just finding the money to do it. My question is, once a person decides to hire help, what then? We have some funds to dedicate to this purpose, but they're not unlimited, and they need to cover a lot of ground. In any given moment, I need help with scheduling, corresponding, running random errands, etc. I don't lack for candidates. I teach part-time and work with early career people in my field, and have many people interested in assisting me with projects, but the needs for a variety of skills, knowledge, availability, and how much I can actually oversee them has resulted in several short-term work arrangements that fizzle out. What's your advice for someone who has bought your pitch for why they need help but can't stick the landing? How can I choose the right person to hire, engage them in an ongoing way, and provide the appropriate amount of direction so that over time my projects become easier to manage and my workload becomes lighter?
All right, that is a lot, June. First of all, I just want to say thanks to Mark for writing in. And also, although I'm sure things feel overwhelming, congratulations on getting to the place where you need this help, and even more importantly, recognizing that you need help. I struggle so much in asking for help. I am really impressed by your even starting to figure all of this out. So, June, let me ask you first. Have you ever been in a position like Mark's?
Not so much in my creative life, or I guess I should say that I may have been in that position, but I didn't have the sort of emotional intelligence that Mark is displaying to realize that, well, you know what? I can get myself out of this feeling of overwhelm. But I have been involved with hiring in, kind of work contexts. So I guess I have some insight on this topic. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've had paid research assistants. Our mutual friend Ray Binstock is actually joining me for my third book to help me out with that one as well. And occasionally I've had someone do a few hours of personal assistant stuff for me and my wife when things just really get too unmanageable. But you definitely have a lot more experience in hiring than I do. I have some experience in hiring them for the ways Mark is asking about, so hopefully our Wonder Twin powers will activate and take the form of a gorilla and a mop bucket and some good advice after this.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back when you use it to buy the new Apple Vision Pro or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.50% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Apple Card and Savings by Goldman Sachs Bank USA Salt Lake City branch. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This podcast is brought to you by Slate Studios and SAP. AI is moving so fast. If you don't get reliable and relevant advice, your business might miss out. Welcome to Dear Artie, an advice column from SAP, where we tackle the tricky questions at the intersection of AI and business. Let's meet our expert.
Hi, I'm Ian Khan. I'm a technology futurist, speaker, and author, and I love to help organizations measure their current state of readiness for an AI-driven world. I'm excited to dive into today's question.
Dear Artie, our finance team is top-notch, but small. How can AI support them? Signed, Financially Drained.
Well, financially drained, a lot is happening in finance and AI, and the possibilities are endless. First of all, AI can help your finance team analyze massive amounts of financial data faster than any human or a team of people could do. Second, it can help perform functions on data through algorithms. This can connect different systems together and really simplify decision-making for your finance team. And last but not least, AI can help reduce the time needed for data to provide insights so that your leaders can make faster decisions.
Embrace AI with confidence. Head to sap.com/AI to learn more.
Hey listeners, do you have any tips or questions about the creative process? Get in touch, share your advice, and, well, also we'd love to hear your questions. What do you need help with? You can email us at working@slate.com, or even better, you can call us and leave a message at 304-933-9675. That's 304-933-WORK. Okay, now back to working overtime.
And we're back. My first thought here is part of the problem that Mark is facing is, like many people in creative fields, he has a busy personal life and a busy professional life. And sometimes those things are totally merged, and sometimes they just look like they are merged. It could just be difficult to separate all that stuff. So my first advice is to actually just sit down and list which tasks have to do with work and which ones have to do with home. Just draw a line down the middle of a piece of paper and just start listing things. Some things are going to, overlap, right? But to the extent that you can avoid putting something in both columns, try to avoid it. Is it 80% personal? Great, put it in the personal column, Mm-hmm. And then once you have that list, start trying to figure out how much time in an average week or two, or even month, since your schedule changes a lot, is taken up by these tasks. Just get as firm a picture possible of what you really need. And related to this, just to see what's really going on, this is a tip I read about and I started using and it really works. Get a planner, and at the end of the day, try to fill it out with what you actually did hour to hour throughout the day. This is not an appointment calendar. This is actually a record keeping exercise of your day-to-day work. And you will actually get a really accurate picture of what the problems are. You'll look at it and you'll be like, 3 hours a day answering email? Mm-hmm. What the fuck is going on? I need some, I know that sounds like I'm actually giving our listener more work, which I guess I am, but it won't take that much time and it will actually make solving the rest of this much easier, I think. What do you think, June? Is this good advice or am I full of baloney?
Baloney? Never. First, I have to say, Isaac, I think you've hit on the most important and in many ways the trickiest aspect of any hiring conundrum, which is figuring out what and how much help is needed. And of course, how much you can afford. I think, yes, it does take time to do that. It's an effort, but it can really pay off down the line. And I also think the steps you suggest are absolutely essential. So Mark, really take this project seriously. And also notice things like, where's the pain? Where's the stuff you just hate to do and therefore spend too much or too little time doing? What have you identified as essential and still not gotten to? Is it really essential? It is? Okay, put that high on the list. Then you need to figure out how many hours you can afford to hire someone for in a given period. Here, I want to call out something you mentioned as a problem you've encountered in the past. Make sure you buy yourself enough time to supervise their work. You mentioned having had problems where your inability to oversee the people you hired meant you couldn't make productive use of the time and skills you were purchasing. You just can't overlook or ignore that part of this project. Make sure you know exactly what it is you want this person to do for you, and then make time in your schedule to make sure that it's getting done. Otherwise, you're wasting your money and everyone's time. And this isn't something you'll need to do forever, but it is really important to dedicate time to it when you're working with a new person or this is a new task you're getting help with. I also think you may need to hire more than one person. The tasks you outline are pretty disparate. Running errands and performing housework don't require the same skill set as correspondence and submitting grant reports. You'll probably get those tasks done more efficiently by dividing them. And I promise I'm not just saying that because I could absolutely smash correspondence and grant reports, but would be absolutely useless at errands and housekeeping. But of course, you still have to find the right person to take care of the tasks you've identified. And there is no doubt that that is a really tough job. Isaac, do you have any advice for hiring the right person?
You know, sometimes I have done a great job at that, and sometimes I've done a really terrible job. I think the good news is that since Mark teaches part-time, he not only has candidates, but people he can easily contact for reliable references on those candidates. Also, if it's possible, or maybe he's already doing this, I don't know, to make assisting him in his creative work an official internship, so that way the student would get credit as well as pay. It's helping them to build their resume. That probably will get greater buy-in because they're not doing glamorous work, right? And so the buy-in part of it can be really helpful. But beyond that, I defer to you because you have way more management and hiring experience than I do.
Well, you're kind, Isaac, but I do want to note that there is obviously a lot of difference between hiring for a job that is a recognizable step on a career ladder and one that is basically assisting someone with their work on a part-time basis. And I don't say that to be harsh or to drag our lovely listener. I just think it's important to recognize that. You will keep a housekeeper because you are paying them appropriately and treating them well. You will not keep them because they're ambitious and they're keen to break into the creative field you happen to work in, which might be so if you had a sort of vocationally related job. Things are different when we're talking about tasks that involve your creative work. They will hopefully be picking up useful skills that will serve them in their own creative work. That said, I think ultimately clarity is key. Clarity about what the work will be, what it will entail, and what the person doing it will learn from it. That not only helps the person you're going to hire decide if it's a job they're interested in and will want to keep doing for more than a couple of weeks, you will know what to ask them when you're interviewing them. You will be able to figure out if they're performing the job adequately, and you will be able to assign appropriate tasks. The more general and amorphous a job description is, the less likely you are to find someone appropriate and ultimately for either party to be happy.
Yes. And then, of course, there is the third wrinkle that Mark discusses, which I think is really the $6 million question or whatever, training and management.
Yeah.
This is where I really think keeping the personal and professional jobs separate can help. The personal stuff, at least in my experience, tends to be less skill-based. If it's, if it's like dropping off packages, getting your dry cleaning, and, going over the calendar or whatever, like that doesn't take a lot of training. So it may be you actually just want to start there, because once the pressure is off one area, it will make managing all the rest of the areas a lot easier. You'll be less exhausted, and then you can start working on getting someone to do the professional stuff. Either way, what I have found works best is to have a checklist of things you need the person to do, a deadline you need them done by, and then orient them on the tasks. If you're working with students, you may need to do the extra step and literally be like, here is how you keep track of what I'm telling you, write down notes, and here is how you meet that deadline. Put the tasks in your calendar, because you're kind of training them in how to have a job. But there's only so much you can do in terms of making sure people do their jobs. At the end of the day, they're going to do it or they're not. You're going to keep working with them or you won't. And that is why very clear deadlines help. Look, someone either gets the work done on time or you need to move on, right?
Absolutely. You have hired this person because you need help. If they're not helping, the whole project is pointless. I guess I want to tell Mark, I can tell from your email that you are feeling overwhelmed. As Isaac said, doing the work of breaking in the tasks in the way we've been describing, it's work and it will take some time. But I really do think it will help address that overwhelm that's surely getting in the way of your creativity, probably not helping your home life. So just make the time, and I think it actually will allow you to get the help you need and ultimately be happier.
Yes. Let me just add on to that. Yes, and it to say that's one of the reasons why I was thinking, whatever the low hanging fruit is, if you can get someone in to do that quickly who doesn't need a lot of training, that'll help you feel less overwhelmed. And then you're spending less mental energy on feeling bad, which frees up more mental energy to actually solve the problem. The other thing that I would say is that if you're in a place where you need this help, that probably means, you're doing well and you're doing well in your field and you're someone that people will know and know that they want to work for. And that will actually be helpful. You're not, at the beginning of your career needing a bunch of extra help. You've arrived. You have a certain establishment and reputation, and you can use that to help you find people. I really hope that this has been helpful, Mark. Please keep in touch and let us know how it's going. For the rest of you, we will be back shortly with a listener email that is, shall we say, displeased with something I said in an earlier episode.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. At the start of the year, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we're already doing right. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. I've really benefited from therapy in the past. It helped me to get a better sense of what was going on in my life. My therapist helped me find clarity and to learn to communicate better. It was very useful. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/overtime today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/overtime.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverage you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies, all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
What's the best way to learn a language? Immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards this year, you can still learn a language in the second best way, and that's with Babbel. There are 14 languages available in Babbel, from Dutch to Russian, a very nice selection. And when I decided to take a look at the app, instead of taking up a new language, I spent some time brushing up on a language that I know, and I was really impressed. In my experience, it's hardest to find things to help people who already have a good basis in a language. My Spanish is pretty good, and I wasn't sure that Babbel would be able to engage me, but it did. There were conversational topics that I could actually see myself using in discussion with friends, and the vocabulary was genuinely useful. I like the variety, their speaking, vocabulary flashcards, writing. I'm a convert. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's tips and tools are approachable, accessible, rooted in real-life situations, and delivered with conversation-based teaching, so you're ready to practice what you've learned in the real world. Babbel has over 10 million subscriptions sold, plus all of Babbel's 14 language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for our listeners. Right now, get 55% off your Babbel subscription, only for our listeners, at babbel.com/working. Get 55% off at babbel.com/working, spelled BABBEL.com/working. Rules and restrictions may apply. Hey listeners, this is where I ask you to subscribe to Working. It really helps us, and best of all, it helps you to get every single episode of our fantastic podcast. If you enjoy it, hey, why don't you also leave us a review, a rating, maybe hit the star if you listen on Overcast. Whatever it is that you can do to show your appreciation, please know that we appreciate your appreciation. Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting us.
Welcome back. In a recent Working Overtime episode, June asked me about authors hiring their own editors, copy editors, publicists, things of that nature to help them with getting their books done. And I kind of went a bit on a off-the-cuff rant, shall we say. Let's roll the tape, Kevin. I will admit I have a little bit of mixed feelings about what you just said. Not about Harper Bliss hiring editors. Like if you're self-publishing, protect yourself, get a copy editor, for example. But I do think there's this growing trend in the publishing industry of people not really doing their jobs and expecting authors to pay consultants or freelancers or whatever to do them. If you have an agent and you are a nonfiction writer and your agent is not good at giving you feedback, or they are giving you tsuris about, how much work they're doing on the book proposal, fire them. Like, hands down, find another agent. It's completely absurd. I had friends who read the method and gave me notes as it was written. They were incredibly important to the making of that book. I also, though, have a brilliant editor in Ben Hyman at Bloomsbury, who was very involved, gave great notes. Sometimes those notes were just us having lunch together and talking about things. Sometimes those notes were line edits, but, he was really important to that process. I am very lucky. I have had friends at other houses who got essentially ghosted from their editors, basically had no notes at all and had to figure it out on their own. That's a serious abrogation of their duty. And don't even get me started on all the problems various authors I know have had with their in-house publicists. I love my publicist. I also am friends with publicists for hire that I know, but in a just world, there would not be publicists for hire because the people at the publishing house would, again, do their jobs. And frankly, there would be enough of them hired and on salary that they could do their jobs, right? It's not necessarily, in a lot of cases, people are doing the best they can with the limited resources they have. And the publishing industry as a business is in all kinds of trouble, and I recognize that, but it still just makes me crazy. So one of our listeners wrote in to complain about what I said, and I wanted to make sure that their concerns, which are very valid, get a hearing. So here we go.
Dear Working, I was glad to see this week's topic because I'm beyond burnt out and was looking for ideas to start 2024 fresh. This year has left no time for creative work given the nonstop demands of my full-time and freelance jobs in publishing. So I had to laugh when I heard Isaac Butler rant about publishing people not doing their jobs. In a way, he's not wrong, but it applies to everyone in publishing, including the authors. And it's down to pay and people. I work for one of the big three, and there's not enough staff and definitely not enough salary to allow people the time and focus to do the work their job title indicates. More than half of my department freelances as a necessity, which isn't at all unusual. The on-sales date rules everything, and the pressure to get volume out or hit a certain pub date can mean people working overtime to do quality work on unbelievably tight schedules, often filling in the gaps left by the stages before them. Corporate capitalism has made the scenario pretty much the norm now, but that's down to the business interests, not the people who are working so hard to get the best product out into the world, usually just because they love books and writing and stories so very much.
So, June, I guess I should just say, I totally get why someone working for one of the big publishers would hear what I said and feel this way in response. It is really hard out there for everyone. It's only gotten more so since we've gone, back to in-person work, and inflation and wages haven't kept up, and things are hard out there. I really was not intending to just pay lip service to that difficulty at the end of my little ad-libbed speech, but rather to acknowledge that everyone is trying to make miracles happen with very few resources. Yep. At the same time, I do stand by the larger point of what I said, if not the tone I used in saying it. You asked me about a specific thing that connected to a problem a friend of mine was having, that I'd just been consulting with them about the day before. I was pretty pissed. Those two things kind of swirled together. But the underlying point I stand by. Advances are getting smaller and smaller, and more often authors are being pressured into or expected to spend what little they make hiring other people to do jobs that traditionally were handled fully and capably by their publishers in-house. That's just true. And I think we would all agree that whatever the reasons for that are, it's a shame. Authors are the ones whose labor provides the material for which the entire industry exists. They do not get steady salaries, and they do not get benefits. They are in an extremely precarious position, and that precarity is only made worse by not having the kind of emotional security of knowing that work will be adequately shepherded and shaped and fixed and pruned and everything else during the editing and producing process. I've heard many horror stories from authors about this sort of thing. Turning in manuscripts and having them go into production with 0 edits, for example, which, if you're an author and you're hearing this, you're feeling ill, or receiving the first pass page proofs and saying that the person couldn't make any changes other than proofreading. It's just very, very difficult stuff. And that was what was motivating me to speak up about it. I think our listener does a great job of explaining why this is the case. And I think we are both in agreement that this state of affairs is bad for everyone. I wish I knew how to fix it. I feel extremely lucky to be at Bloomsbury, where the entire editing and production team has always been all in on my work. They did incredible stuff with the method, and they could not have been more helpful every step of the way. But I also know from talking to my compatriots in the writing field that this is rarer than anyone would really like. June, do you have anything to add?
Oh, man. First of all, right on, Isaac. I just want to say, person in publishing, that I hear you. Just about everyone, except perhaps the people at the very, very top of the org chart, just have too little time to do too many tasks, and it goes without saying, unfortunately, for too little money. Here, as in so many places, the system is just broken. But Isaac, I agree with your fundamental point here. The more things the author is expected to pay for, the harder it is for people who don't have family money or any other access to funds to access opportunities and get their ideas out there. And that is antithetical to the very purpose of publishing, and it just sucks.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone goes into publishing wanting that to be the case.
No kidding.
Authors don't go into that. People don't go into editing being like, I know what I'll do. I'll not edit manuscripts that come across my desk. No one feels good about this, right? It's just none of us know exactly how to fix it. And I don't mean to be hopeless about it. I think there is a fix. We just don't really know what it is. I do want to say thank you so much to our letter writers, both of them, Mark and Person in Publishing, for writing us with your questions and concerns. I really, really appreciate it. That's all the time we have for this episode, but let me leave you with one last piece of advice. I think you should subscribe to Working wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have ideas for things we could do better, questions you'd like us to address, success stories that make you feel great, we would love to hear from you. You can send us an email at working@slate.com or give us a ring at 304-933-WORK and leave a voicemail. We love voicemails. We love to hear your voice. get in touch.
If you'd like to support what we do, sign up for Slate Plus at slate.com/workingplus. You'll get bonus content, including exclusive episodes of Slow Burn and Decoder Ring, and you'll be supporting what we do right here on Working.
Working Overtime is produced by the great Kevin Bendis. Our series producer is the lovely and talented Cameron Drews. Thanks to them both. We will be back on Sunday with a brand new episode of Working, and in 2 weeks, we'll have another Working Overtime. Until then, get back to work.